John Diarma with the Coquille Sword Group, and today we're talking about Article 35. So, let's begin. Article 35, the perception of the inevitable moment. The perception of the inevitable moment teaches that in the respective combat situation, you should perceive with certainty the resulting fateful moment in which you are too early or too late to do something, or in which you can escape from something or not. With regard to that moment for striking with a sword, there is an esoteric principle in my school called Jiki-tsu. The details of this will be handed down verbally. Okay, well let's work backwards on this a little bit. So, the esoteric principle of Jiki-tsu. Now, there is a postulated idea that the tsu in Jiki-tsu is a copying error, and that the ideogram should actually be do. But for our purposes, Jiki-tsu is what we'll use, and it's the term that's used within the school today, so that's what it's going for. But what is Jiki-tsu? It's direct communication, right? And what this means is something like, I can tell a student, cut the person down, right? And they can push on the other dude with a sword, try and push him over. Then I can put my sword on them, boom, and cut them down. And they go, I got it, right? I didn't verbally give them more information. I didn't tell them how to shape their body. But by direct communication, they've come to understand what it is that we're talking about and what it is that we're doing. The idea of Jiki-tsu is not unique to Hyoho. Though I think it is not known by that name in other styles and other methods, even within Japan, obviously. It is an enormous part of any arts that are at all sophisticated, right? And that is a large amount of the martial arts, right? The perception of the inevitable moment and how we teach it or we come to know it. When I was taught, this was not something that was addressed, right? At the level that I was at, we just did kata. Just kata and more kata, right? Very little explanation, just work. But there's good methodology in that, because an enormous part of this inevitable moment and coming to understand basically how you relate to the opponent and their work comes from having a basic body of knowledge of things like, their sword is this far, if I step here I'm going to be hit, if I step here I'm not, right? And unfortunately there's not like step with your front foot to the 4th degree or whatever, your back foot's out 190 degrees. You just learn it by experience. It's a refinement of your intuitive understanding of things like distance, timing, and relationship eye. At the sort of lowest levels, right, we get the sense for when we are going to be hit or not, right? Like if I'm trying to do something from Kodachiwa, like the Haritsuke, right? And I'm trying to capture their sword and then their elbow. I know, right? If my parry is out of time. If it's too fast, I'm in trouble. If it's too slow, I'm in trouble. From there, we begin to understand distance, the sword to us. Can they strike me? Can they not strike me? Right? And sort of at the final level of this, you begin to get the sense of when that critical moment to strike the opponent comes. Now, it's difficult, or rather, it progresses in this way because when you go to parry, right, you're interacting with their sword. It's a set object in motion, and you're interacting with it, right? And so you're very proactive. It's easy to see their work is on a straight line. It exists on its own, and it's just you that's the variable, right? When it comes to whether or not they can hit you, again, it's sort of a static force, but you're not interacting with it this time. You're just changing your relation to that force. So it's more subtle, right? So it's harder to sense. Finding that moment to cut a person is entirely different because you're entirely on the active side of it, but you're not acting against a positive action on the opponent's part. In other words, when they cut at you, they are creating an action. It's a positive action. When it's time to hit them, you're hitting them because of your relation, because of where they are in their motion, how their body is stacked up, how it's put together, where their inertia is moving, right? You're choosing that critical time when they have the least possibility for defending, when your strike will prevent them from striking at you immediately in kind of an afterblow, and to where you're going to cause the most sort of grievous damage to their overall form, right? And I don't mean like form as in cutting through their bones and stuff. I mean the way they're holding their posture and their body together, right? Because if you come up to a dude, you can take a big 9-inch stiletto, put it right through his heart, boop! He can still murder you. He can drop you if he's got the tools and the mean and the desire and the heart for it, right? Whole or not. You've got to break apart your structure, right? And when you start dealing with weapons that can cause as much injury as easily as the tools that we use, the swords and the halberds and everything, even Tonto, you cannot let them maintain the shape that they want to be in, right? And hope to prevail. So it's tricky, right? It's tricky, and unfortunately, as Musashi writes, this is something that you can really only experience directly. Now, just like in a lot of these things, once you know that there's something there to experience, you can hunt it, right? It might take time, right? Especially something as sort of sophisticated as this. But it can be found. Or you could go train with people that know what they're doing, right? And get a sense for it. And again, this is not this inevitable moment is not a Hyoho only skill, right? It's not like we've cornered the market on this secret ninja work, right? They've got it in every kind of combative training, from boxing all the way up to, whatever. So even if you're like, oh, well, I'm a sword guy and I'm trying to understand this, but I don't get it, cross-train, right? You'll be better for it. I think that's about it for the perception of the inevitable moment. As always, if you want to understand this work, you have to pick up a sword and go train.